Hi, welcome to week 7. Wanted to congratulate everybody on a good job when we were working on sitemaps. I know this is not necessarily something uh, that everyone is familiar with, so I think there was a lot of great conversation, and if everyone was able to participate in the conversation and get feedback on their design, I think we're good to move forward. If not, let's make sure that that's the case. So if anyone feels as though they're not quite getting how to represent kind of a higher view from a user perspective. So remember what we've done from last week to this week is we were organizing somewhat for ourselves. Remember Shrivi and his record library. But now we're really trying to think about others. And that's where you have to model or guess at or make some assumptions about the user goals. What are they here to do? And you can be assured, or at least I can tell you in my experience, you can be assured that nobody is here just to get information or to read and understand. It's a pattern I kind of coined a long time ago. The read and understand model, it doesn't really work on the web. It might work in a book or something like that, but on the web, people usually are there to solve some sort of problem or to fit the goals of the site with their goals. So they're trying to match the two, and therefore navigation, understanding the context is pretty important. So as you all have mapped out what you think the overall context, there is one thing as we get into this week. I wouldn't concentrate too much on what I'm calling extras. So I think if we looked into this, contact us, some sort of authentication and or personalization. Unless it's to purchase something, I don't think most people really want to give up their identities to a site. So I would really downplay most of those. I don't think they're really going to play a huge role, unless, of course, you are selling something. So as in my example, my whole point was that I wanted to get you to understand how through a mechanism of looking at a wheel of sense, and that could be I haven't designed it yet. That's what's happening for all of us this week. But the idea that there's some sort of spectrum of sense, just like there's a spectrum of colors, and you can also see things by accord, by name, and see these products, and then be able to purchase them. So my very simple version of the content organization for the person is to help them in a sense, look through and find the thing that they can then purchase. So like I said, I don't think we need to focus on new features. You will be representing this navigation in your wireframes. And so let's get to wireframes. So often people skip all the stuff that we've done. They skip thinking about the structure of the content. They skip marking up and understanding what that content looks like, and they go right into drawing it out. And so finally, after 7 weeks, we get to draw something out. The place where we're drawing things out, I think a good place is Figma. Figma, for those of you not familiar with it, is a drawing tool online, and it's a pretty robust drawing tool. It actually has some a lot of great features. I just kind of started out here. If you're not familiar with drawing tools, one tip is, the T turns on text, the R turns on rectangle, and these are just different primitives that you can use. There's a fair amount of setup here where you could create a canvas based on a size. And at the moment, I think because right now we're just trying to see how our content fits, I'm really pretty fine with using mobile. I think it gives you a lot of constraints that help you think carefully about how your content is displayed on the screen. So I think mobile is good, or you can do mobile and desktop. But I do think that mobile will kind of help focus things. So this particular landscape, this is a landscape orientation that I'm showing, would probably be, would definitely be more of something that we would compress and use as a card or one of those different content organization patterns we did in week 6 that repeat. So this orientation might suggest that it's desktop, so go ahead and use these to create something that's a little bit more appropriate to phone. And if you have any difficulties with Figma, you're welcome to use any tool. You can even draw this on a piece of paper. It's really, there's no perfect, wireframes are meant to be low fidelity, and they're meant to show hierarchies. So what's really important is to take that markup from from your week 4 and start to say, well, if you have headings 1 and 2 and sections and pictures and so forth, how are you going to arrange them on a page hierarchically so they make some kind of sense? And if there's actions, there's one part of this week. So let's navigate to the mural for this week. One thing I do want you to start thinking about is actionability and clickability. So there's a bit of explanation up here about how do you see what's actionable. And in a wireframe, I think it becomes important. Sometimes you can use color, like a blue color, to indicate something that users act upon. I want you to really start thinking about that in your wireframes. Is there any action or clickability that people have? So little caveat, if you have navigation at the top of the screen or any of the content areas that we talked about and explored last week about how you show where navigation goes, tabs and drop downs and such, you don't have to make those any particular color. People know somewhat by their position that they're clickable. But if you have content that has a area that's clickable, this is some area to think about clickability. So here are some different tools, and then basically it's here to share your wireframes and discuss how you turned your HTML into visual. So I won't go into your HTML, but I will go back to Dan Mall, and you can see here, this is really where this stuff kind of shines. If you didn't read Dan Mall's article, it's in week 4, I believe. And you can see right now, it's really about taking that HTML and figuring out what is the way you're going to organize that so that you can repeat it, that people can manipulate it. Maybe it's a state where there's a list of a small list and then a large list, and so it's taking that and mocking that up. So if you haven't read this is really what wireframes are all about. Sizing, hierarchy, so on and so forth. So please reread this article, but that's the goal of this week. And just to reiterate, the goal of this week is really about content. So don't focus on designing pages that you don't have content for. So your content is still king, and if you're going to make up new parts of your content, which many of you have. Remember, we started, I think pretty much with 8 or 9 fields that you downloaded at one point from a database. You're going to definitely need to, I want to kind of look to see where this new stuff came from. So really try to stick pretty closely to the data that as they say, dance with the one who brought you. So it's really stay pretty close to marking up your content rather than, again, kind of creating a whole bunch of new stuff. And think again about how people will sort and filter and manipulate. Is it through high-level navigation? Is it through low-level, like filters? If you guys have really thought about the way that content's organized, is it maybe, for example, sometimes you have on an article itself ability to click through and see more articles with this subject matter. So all that thought you put into how things are categorized should really pay off here. Yeah, so it's going to be a fun week. Again, don't get into anything high fidelity. I don't need anything. I don't need any colors. I don't need anything that looks like this. Everything should be pretty much similar in look and feel to here, but it should have real content, and it should think about how visually it's organized, and you might, again, do different states of this. So maybe there's a homepage state. How do you get to a detail state? And that's about it. I wouldn't go much farther than that. Maybe sort of overview to detail would be the most amount of information I'd need. But the thought process here is how do you arrange things to make sense, and how does the user make sense of the again, wide variety of content. So I did put a couple of notes on people, and if you haven't seen my notes, please do subscribe to get comments emailed to you, because it makes it a lot easier than having to go find them. Or if you haven't figured out, you can actually go up here to the activity area and kind of see what's going on. Yeah, you can sort of get an overview of the action, so to speak. But yeah, I did make a couple things. A lot of people started out by scraping, say, top 10 lists or top 100 lists, which is great, but let's divorce it from that, because a top anything list is already an information construct. I think I said before, like they had to watch 10,000 movies to recommend 100. So just remember, that isn't where where you started. Right now, it's really just movies or it's books or whatever got you to this point. That's your content. So now you're building a somewhat, let's call it, new way of looking at it. And you're the information architect, so you get to create the value however you like. It just so happens that your subject matter might be books or movies or soundtracks or something like that. So don't be too beholden that you have to stick with top anything or, again, some sort of already filtered list. So if that makes sense, if it doesn't, please email me. I'm here to help. I just want to make sure everybody's set up for success. So each week we're going to kind of build one more piece into the puzzle, and then at the end of next week you'll submit this. Still haven't figured out, submit it as a PDF, submit it through Figma, however, kind of whatever's easiest. Again, this isn't a class about tools as it is much about the way you communicate your thoughts about how things are organized. That's really what's important. So again, let me know if you have any questions, and good luck for this week. Thanks.